most dangerous place you'll ever stand isn't on a battlefield. It's not in a war zone, not in enemy territory, not surrounded by threats you can see. The most dangerous place you'll ever stand is between your own ears. In the space where thoughts become beliefs, where beliefs become patterns, where patterns become the life you live. This is the real battlefield, and most people don't even know they're fighting there. They think the battle is out there, in their circumstances, their relationships, their problems. But the war is in here, in the mind, in the thoughts that loop endlessly, in the narratives you tell yourself when no one else is listening. Because here's what most people miss. You don't live in reality. You live in your perception of reality. And perception is shaped by thought. And thought can be a weapon or a prison. The ancient text understood this. In Romans 12, verse 2, it didn't say, change your circumstances. It said, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Not your situation, your mind. Because when your mind shifts, everything shifts. The facts might stay the same, but the meaning changes. The pressure might remain, but the prison breaks open. This is the battle no one talks about, the battle for your mind. And if you lose this battle, you lose everything. Because you can have the right faith, the right knowledge, the right intentions. But if your mind is still captive, you're still captive. Jesus said it plainly in John 8:32. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. But here's the part we miss. Knowing truth intellectually doesn't free you. Living in truth mentally does. You can quote scripture and still be bound by lies. You can believe God exists and still believe lies about who you are. You can know the truth and still function from the narrative the enemy planted years ago. Because freedom isn't about information. Freedom is about transformation. And transformation happens in the mind. The enemy knows this, which is why he doesn't attack your circumstances first. He attacks your thoughts about your circumstances. He doesn't need to destroy your life. He just needs to control how you see it. If he can get you to believe the lie, he doesn't need to enforce the prison. You'll build it yourself. Thought by thought, belief by belief, pattern by pattern, until you're trapped in a cell with no walls, defeated by a war you didn't know you were fighting. This is why 2 Corinthians 10 verse 5 says, we demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. Take captive every thought. Not some thoughts, not the big thoughts, every thought. Because thoughts aren't neutral. They're either moving you toward freedom or deeper into bondage. They're either aligned with truth or agreement with lies. They're either building the life God designed or reinforcing the prison the enemy built. And you get to choose every single time. But most people don't choose. They just think. Whatever comes, they entertain. Whatever rises, they believe. Whatever loops, they accept. And slowly, without even realizing it, their mind becomes enemy territory, occupied, controlled, weaponized against them. This is the battlefield, and this is where freedom is won or lost. Not in what happens to you, in what you think about what happens to you, not in what someone said, in what you tell yourself about what they said, not in the circumstance, in the narrative you create around the circumstance. That narrative, that's the real battle. Because if the enemy can control your narrative, he doesn't need to control your life. The narrative will do it for him. I'll never be enough. That's a narrative. God is disappointed in me. That's a narrative. This will never change. That's a narrative. I'm too far gone. That's a narrative. None of those are facts. They're stories. Stories repeated until they feel like truth. But repetition doesn't make something true. It just makes it familiar. And familiar narratives are the hardest to break because they've been playing so long, you don't even hear them anymore. They're just background noise, the soundtrack to your life. But that soundtrack, it's shaping everything. How you see yourself, how you see God, how you approach opportunity, how you respond to failure, how you interpret love, how you process pain. The narrative shapes it all. And if the narrative is wrong, your life will reflect it. No matter how hard you try to change externally, if the internal narrative stays the same, nothing changes. This is why renewing your mind isn't optional. It's essential. Not someday, now, today, in this moment. Because the battle in your thoughts, it's happening right now. The question is, are you fighting it, or are you letting the enemy win by default? You win this battle by becoming aware. Aware that not every thought is true. Aware that not every belief is yours. Aware that the narrative can be rewritten. You win this battle by taking thoughts captive, by stopping the loop, by questioning the story, by asking, is this true, or is this just familiar? You win this battle by replacing lies with truth, not once, repeatedly, daily, until truth becomes the new familiar. This is the work. This is the warfare. This is the transformation Paul wrote about. Not a one-time event, a daily decision. To fight for your mind, to guard your thoughts, to demolish the strongholds built by years of believing the wrong narrative. Because the battlefield between your ears, that's where your future is decided. Not by what you face, by what you think about what you face. And if you can win the battle for your mind, you can win any battle. But if you lose your mind, you lose everything. So fight, not out there, in here. Because the war for your life is waged in the space between your ears. And freedom starts with a thought. One true thought, held, repeated, believed, until the lie has nowhere left to hide. There's a thought that plays in your head, over and over, so many times you don't even notice it anymore. It just runs, in the background, on repeat, like a song you didn't choose but can't turn off. And it's shaping everything. How you see yourself, how you interpret life, how you respond to pressure, how you relate to God. This isn't just a thought, it's a loop, and loops have power. Because what you think repeatedly becomes what you believe deeply, and what you believe deeply becomes how you live automatically. This is how strongholds are built, not in a moment, in repetition. The enemy doesn't need to convince you of a lie once. He just needs to get you to repeat it enough times that it feels like truth. I'm not enough. Say it enough, and it becomes identity. I always mess this up. Say it enough, and it becomes prophecy. Nothing ever works out for me. Say it enough, and it becomes a filter for every experience. The loop becomes the lens, and the lens determines what you see. Two people face the same situation, same facts, same circumstances, but they see it completely differently. Why? Because they're running different loops. One loop says, God is with me. The other says, I'm on my own. One loop says, this is hard, but I'll grow. The other says, This is proof I'm cursed. Same situation, different loops, different realities. This is the power of the mind. It doesn't just observe life, it interprets it. And the loop is the interpreter. So if the loop is broken, the interpretation is broken. And if the interpretation is broken, your entire experience of life is broken. Scripture speaks of this in Proverbs 23, verse 7. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Not as his circumstances are, not as his past was, not as his potential could be, as he thinks. Because thinking isn't passive, thinking is creative. Thinking shapes reality. Not the facts of reality, but your experience of it. And your experience is what you live in, not the facts, the experience. You can have every blessing and still live in lack if the loop says it's never enough. You can have every open door and still live in fear if the loop says it won't last. You can have every reason to trust and still live in anxiety if the loop says something bad is coming. The loop overrides the facts, every time. This is why Paul wrote in Colossians 3:2, "Set your mind on things above, not on things on the earth." Not your circumstances, your mind. Because your circumstances might be chaos, but if your mind is set, you're anchored. But if your circumstances are fine and your mind is chaos, you're drowning. The loop determines everything. So the question isn't what's happening to me. The question is, what's happening in me? What loop is playing? What narrative is running? What thought is on repeat? Because that loop, that's your reality, more than anything external could ever be. And if the loop is a lie, you're living in a prison with no walls, bound by something invisible but unbreakable. Until you break it. And you break it by interrupting it, by catching it, by stopping the cycle mid-spin and saying, "No, that's not truth." This is what taking thoughts captive actually means. It's not suppressing them, it's confronting them. It's hearing the loop say, "You'll never overcome this," and responding, "That's not what God says." It's hearing the loop say, "You're alone in this," and responding, "He said he'd never leave me." It's hearing the loop say, "This is who you are," and responding, "This is who I was, not who I'm becoming." You don't defeat the loop by ignoring it. You defeat it by replacing it. Thought by thought, day by day, repetition by repetition, until the new loop is louder than the old one, until truth is more familiar than lies, until the voice of God drowns out the voice of the enemy. This is the work of renewing your mind. It's not mystical, it's methodical. It's waking up and choosing what you'll think about before the loop starts playing. It's stopping the spiral mid-spin and redirecting your thoughts toward truth. It's speaking scripture out loud when the lie gets loud. It's refusing to let the old narrative have the final word. Because loops are powerful, but they're not permanent. They can be rewritten, rewired, replaced, but only if you fight for it. Only if you recognize that the battle isn't out there, it's in here. Only if you understand that freedom doesn't come from changing your circumstances. It comes from changing your mind. The loop that owns you today doesn't have to own you tomorrow. But you have to interrupt it, confront it, replace it. Because what you think repeatedly becomes what you believe deeply. And what you believe deeply becomes the life you live. So choose the loop. Don't let it choose you. Because the mind you renew is the life you reclaim. Your mind is a garden. And whatever you water grows. Not what you wish would grow. not what you hope will grow, what you water. This is the law. Simple, unbreakable, unavoidable. You can plant seeds of truth, but if you water lies, lies will flourish. You can desire freedom, but if you water fear, fear will dominate. You can pray for peace, but if you water anxiety, anxiety will take over. Because the garden doesn't care about your intentions. It cares about your attention. Whatever you give attention to, you give strength to. Whatever you meditate on, you multiply. This is why Philippians 4 verse 8 says, "Whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things." Think about such things. Not once, consistently, intentionally, repeatedly. Because the mind is a garden, and you are the gardener, and the harvest you reap tomorrow is determined by what you water today. Most people don't realize they're watering weeds. They think they're just thinking, just processing, just venting. But every thought you entertain, you're watering. Every worry you rehearse, you're strengthening. Every fear you replay, you're feeding. And what you feed grows, always. You don't wake up one day suddenly consumed by anxiety. You wake up one day realizing you've been watering it for months. You don't suddenly lose faith. You slowly stop watering it. You don't suddenly become bitter. You water resentment until it chokes out everything else. The garden reveals what you've been tending, not what you said you believed, what you actually gave attention to. Because belief isn't just what you claim. Belief is what you water. If you say you trust God but water worst-case scenarios, you don't really trust God. You trust fear. If you say you're grateful but water complaints, you're not cultivating gratitude. You're cultivating dissatisfaction. If you say you're forgiven but water guilt, you're not living in freedom. You're living in a prison you keep rebuilding. The garden doesn't lie. It shows you what you've been watering. And here's the hard truth. You can't blame the harvest on the seed if you're the one who watered the weeds. The enemy plants seeds. Absolutely. He whispers lies, drops doubts, suggests fears. But he doesn't make them grow. You do, by giving them attention, by meditating on them, by rehearsing them until they take root. This is why the battle for your mind isn't just about rejecting lies. It's about choosing what you'll cultivate instead. You can pull weeds all day, but if you don't plant anything in their place, they'll just grow back. You have to water something. The question is, what? Because the mind won't stay empty. It will grow whatever you give it. So if you want peace, water peace. Meditate on the promises that bring peace. Speak truths that produce peace. Choose thoughts that lead to peace. If you want faith, water faith. Read what builds faith. Declare what strengthens faith. Think about what proves his faithfulness. If you want joy, water joy. Stop watering complaints. Stop rehearsing offenses. Stop meditating on what's wrong and start giving attention to what's right. This isn't denial. This is cultivation. You're not ignoring reality. You're choosing which reality gets your focus. Because there's always more than one reality present. There's the problem and the promise, the pain and the presence, the obstacle and the opportunity. And whichever one you water is the one that will dominate your experience. Two people face the same hardship. One waters, God has forsaken me. The other waters, God is refining me. Same hardship, different gardens, different harvests. One produces despair, the other produces endurance. One leads to bitterness, the other leads to breakthrough. Because the situation didn't determine the outcome, the garden did. This is the power you have. You don't control what seeds get planted, but you absolutely control what you water. And most people waste years watering things they don't even want to grow. They water offense until it becomes unforgiveness. They water insecurity until it becomes paralysis. They water doubt until it becomes unbelief. And then they wonder why their life feels barren, why peace is absent, why joy feels impossible. But the garden doesn't lie. The harvest reflects what you watered. So look at your life. What's growing? What's dominating? What's consuming your mental space? That's what you've been watering. Maybe not intentionally, but consistently. And if you don't like the harvest, you have to change what you water. Stop giving attention to what you don't want to grow. Stop meditating on worst-case scenarios. Stop rehearsing failures. Stop replaying offenses. Start watering truth. Start giving attention to promises. Start meditating on His faithfulness. Start declaring who He says you are. Not once, daily, repeatedly, until the new growth overtakes the old. Because the garden you water today becomes the life you live tomorrow. And you can't water weeds and expect flowers. You can't water fear and expect faith. You can't water lies and expect freedom. Whatever you water grows. So water wisely. Water intentionally. Water the garden you actually want to live in. Because the mind is a garden, and the harvest is coming. The only question is, what have you been watering? There's a lie we believe about transformation. That it happens suddenly, dramatically. In one moment of revelation, everything changes. The scales fall, the darkness lifts, the mind is renewed. And it does happen, sometimes, in moments of encounter, moments of breakthrough. But most of the time, transformation isn't instant, it's intentional. It's not one decision, it's 1,000 decisions, made daily, made repeatedly, made even when you don't feel like it. This is the part no one wants to hear, because we want the miracle. We want the immediate shift. We want the burden to be lifted in one prayer. And sometimes God does that, absolutely. But more often, He invites you into a process of renewing your mind, not in an instant, but in increments. Day by day, thought by thought, choice by choice. This is what Paul meant in Romans 12, verse 2, when he said, "Be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Renewing, present tense, ongoing action, not renewed once, renewing continually. Because your mind isn't renewed in a moment, it's renewed in a practice. The practice of choosing truth over lies, the practice of taking thoughts captive, the practice of meditating on what's true instead of what's familiar. And practices aren't exciting. Practices are repetitive, mundane, unglamorous. But practices are what create transformation, not information, not inspiration, repetition. This is why people who encounter God powerfully but don't engage the process often end up back where they started. The moment was real. The encounter was genuine. But the mind wasn't renewed. It was touched, not transformed. And a touched mind without a renewed practice will default back to old patterns, every time. Because the mind has been trained, for years, by repetition, by patterns, by loops that have run so long they're automatic. And automatic patterns don't change in a moment. They change through new patterns, new repetitions, new training. Think about it. If you've believed a lie for 10 years, one moment of truth doesn't erase it. One prayer doesn't undo it. One revelation doesn't rewrite it. You have to retrain the mind by replacing the lie with truth, repeatedly, daily, until the new pathway is stronger than the old one. This is the work, and it's work, not a one-time event, a daily discipline. The Israelites understood this. When they left Egypt, they were physically free. The chains were broken. The oppressor was defeated. But their minds were still in Egypt. They had slave mentalities, victim mindsets, scarcity thinking. And even though they were free, they kept wanting to go back because their circumstances had changed, but their minds hadn't. And God couldn't bring them into the promised land until their minds were ready for it. Not because he was withholding, because they would have sabotaged it. They would have brought Egypt's mindset into the promised land and recreated bondage. So they wandered for 40 years, not as punishment, as preparation. God was waiting for a generation whose minds had been renewed, who thought like free people, who believed like conquerors. Because you can't possess what your mind isn't ready to steward. You can have the opportunity, the open door, the blessing, but if your mind is still bound, you'll find a way to lose it. This is why renewing your mind isn't optional. It's essential, not just for freedom, for sustainability. Because breakthrough without renewed thinking leads to breakdown. Victory without renewed thinking leads to sabotage. Deliverance without renewed thinking leads to return. So how do you renew your mind? Not instantly, intentionally. By identifying the lies you've believed and replacing them with truth, daily. By catching old patterns mid-loop and redirecting your thoughts toward what's true, consistently. By speaking scripture over yourself until it's louder than the lies, repeatedly. By filling your mind with truth before the day fills it with noise, intentionally. This is the discipline, and it's not glamorous. It's mundane. It's waking up and choosing. It's stopping mid-spiral and redirecting. It's speaking truth when you don't feel it yet. But this discipline, this is what creates transformation. Not the moment, the practice, not the encounter, the follow-through, not the inspiration, the repetition. Because the mind is retrained through repetition, not intensity, consistency. One truth, repeated daily for 30 days, will do more for your mind than one powerful moment that's never revisited. One redirected thought, practiced consistently, will create more freedom than one breakthrough prayer that's never followed up. This is the invitation, not to wait for the instant transformation, but to step into the intentional renewal. To show up every day and choose. To take captive one thought at a time. To replace one lie with one truth. Again, and again, and again. Until the new pathway is stronger than the old. Until truth is more familiar than lies. Until your default thinking aligns with who God says you are. This is the renewal. And it's not instant. It's intentional. But intentional renewal changes everything. Because a renewed mind doesn't just experience moments of freedom. It lives in sustained transformation. A renewed mind doesn't just overcome one battle. It wins the war. A renewed mind doesn't just survive the pressure. It thrives in it. Because the mind that's been renewed daily isn't shaken by circumstances. It's anchored in truth. The mind that's been renewed consistently isn't controlled by emotion. It's governed by what's eternal. The mind that's been renewed intentionally isn't easily deceived. It's trained to recognize lies before they take root. This is the power of renewing your mind. Not once, continually. So stop waiting for the instant miracle. Start engaging the intentional practice. Choose truth today, and tomorrow, and the day after. Catch the lie mid-loop. Replace it. Repeat. Speak scripture over yourself, daily, until it rewrites the narrative. Because the renewal isn't instant, it's intentional. But intentional renewal creates a mind that's unshakable, a mind that's free, a mind that reflects the truth of who you really are. And that mind changes everything.